Sometimes I forget that when I go live, you can actually watch every little tiny thing I do. Let's see about adjusting this a little bit. Fuck, I almost put my hair on fire. Hi, everybody. Why, hello, Pita. Hi, Mara. Hi, Janine. Hi, Renee. I'm going to keep up with you as best as I can. Hi, John. Hi, Gary. Karen, how are you? Hello, John again. Hello, Tim. Your memes are killing me, dude. Joey, I hope you're feeling better and you're not totally stoned. Aw, that's cute, Peter. Hello, Wade. Hello, Michael. Hello, Heidi. Yay. It's odd. Your comments are coming in before who's coming on. Not totally stoned. That's good, Joey. I wish I was, but... Hello, Ali. Maganda. Let's see, what is it? Magandang gabi. Is that right? I could be wrong. Hello, Teresa. Oh, shit. Billy, sorry about that. Don't kill me, bro. Oh, it's all right. I'll put him in handcuffs for you. I think it's my turn. Hello, Brian. Hello, Mr. Reclusive. Hello, Kelly. I think I got all of you. If I missed you, I'm sorry. I do my best, and sometimes my best just isn't good enough. Just waiting on one Mr. Gabe to show up. Oh, nice, Tim, you lucky bastard. There you are. And hello, Gabe.
Good evening. How are you?
I'm good. Are we? How are
Huh?
you? It's nice
I
to see
just
you're
got
still.
I just got done driving. Been driving all day. So, had about 30 minutes to get Lila to bed and get all squared away before I hopped on here.
Nice. I better freak you out then when I said, "Are you ready in 5 minutes?"
Well, I was just walking through the door whenever you sent me that. I was like, "Oh shit." And I was like, I couldn't remember if you'd said 9 Eastern time or Central or what. So I was like, "Oh fuck. Maybe that was supposed to mean 8." So I was like trying to get ready to get on there, but
That was
got a
my
nice
bad.
little crowd tonight. Look at all of you
Definitely.
guys.
Hi, Connie. Hi, Lori. I've been saying hi to, and Amy. I almost missed you, Amy. I've been
There's
saying hi to many.
Connie. Good crowd. Good crowd. I yeah, made a spontaneous trip down to Texas. Sort of surprised everybody. I usually joke around in those events and say that I'm going to be there, or say that I'm stuck in traffic. And so this time I just thought, you know what? I've been cooped up in this new place for about 2 weeks straight, so I was like, I need to go, need to get this done, you know.
How's the new place?
It's small, but it's nice. It's quaint. It's doable. So it'll work for now until Lila gets done with her therapies, and then we're kind of free to move about the country. So we'll see where we end up after this year. I think it's going to be interesting. So kind of think
Where
I
do you
want
want
to.
to end up?
Crazy thing is like I've always never thought of myself as settling anywhere. Um, More or less just being a nomad, wandering the planet sort of deal. Um, So I mean, I think if I were going to base out of anywhere, it'd probably be more out west, where everything's legal and shit. And then my eventual goal long term is to have properties in various countries, um, rent them out, and then use them as vacation spots or temporary homes, with sort of our fingerprint on that part of the world. So that's kind of my idea. And then eventually leave that all to Lila. So, yeah.
That's
I
a
know.
very long-term goal.
Yeah. So, um, had
Oh,
quite a few people tell me it's pretty ambitious, but I'm a very ambitious
Jane said
guy.
Jane said Australia is the place to be.
Oh my goodness, I need to get out to Australia. I'm trying to see if I've got the funds to go there in January. I'm supposed to go take her to dinner. So, oh, I wanted to go to Iceland this year, Angel. Oh, Connie, Lila's 4. She's adorable. Um, I did want to go to Iceland. That was actually I try to take a trip out of the country every year, and Iceland was going to be this year's trip, because I wanted to see the Northern Lights. There's like two main times throughout the year that you can really see them, and it's usually like in early spring and fall here in the U.S. So like around October time, or like in March through about the beginning of April. But yeah, Iceland was actually something I was playing. So talk to me later, Angel. I'd love to hop on that trip. I've already got my passport and everything.
Everybody wants you to go. They want you to go to Canada and shit. If you're going there, then you can definitely stop in Iowa.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe I'll have a layover in Iowa.
Whatever.
I am supposed to come up to my friends live in New York. They live in fuck, why can't I think of the name now? Starts with an R. Damn it. Anyways, it's close to the Canadian border. It's not too far from Buffalo. So yeah, I think I might try to make it there. Norway? Yeah, I've heard of Norway. I've heard Norway being a good spot for Northern Lights. What's going on, Oliver? Man, we got quite a showing tonight.
Definitely.
So
I was gonna ask.
Rochester, that's it. That's it,
That's what
Connie.
I was gonna ask Connie. Oh, and
Yeah,
look.
Rochester.
Yeah,
Hmm.
now everybody's.
Now everyone's saying Rochester. Gotcha.
Yeah, yes, Iowa.
So, how has your weekend been, Irma? Do you
Well,
meet with
I
any
went.
friends this weekend?
No, not this weekend. I went school shopping yesterday.
Oh, you never did post the after shot, did you? Well,
No, no,
okay.
no.
Okay, you didn't. Okay. I didn't think I saw it. So,
What?
I didn't think I saw the after picture.
Oh yeah, I didn't send you guys the after pic, but I'll definitely send one. It was fucking miserable,
Oh,
but
I'm
I
so
survived.
sorry.
Yeah, come on, really? Who likes to school stuff? I used to
Oh,
when my husband was with me, but
you see, you need to do all this stuff on Amazon Prime and then just have it all shipped to your house.
well, I
So,
typically do. But when Lila gets to be a certain age, you're gonna realize you have to take them in places because no matter
uh,
how on point your measurements are, you're
yeah, they're
still
not
wrong.
not quite. Yeah. Yeah, this is true. This is true. So,
But, but Gabe, this isn't about me. This is about you.
oh, so sorry. I get so used to listening. So, I come from a family of women. So, listening has always been the key thing when when it comes to having conversation with women. Is That's the main thing that I was always taught, is like, just listen. So,
It's a good thing. Most people should, men, learn that. Just listen.
Yeah, that's a good tip, guys. I try to tell guys who aren't like too proud of themselves. I try to tell them like best way to be with women is to A, listen, and B, don't be afraid of the friend zone because that's not it's not a bad place to be. Like when you have a
That,
lot of great recommendations, it's not a bad place to be. So,
that's actually a really good thought. But I really do like Gary's womanese. He's
that
womanese.
womanese. All right, so where do you want me to begin, Irma?
Gabe,
What do you want
I
to
would
know
like you.
about Gay Easter?
Well, first we need to make sure. We all want to know your sexuality. No, really, we don't. We don't.
Huh? Does it
Nothing.
matter?
I want to know. Okay, start with what's your wife's name?
Lindsay, and she always spelled it Linzi. Um, she wanted to be different from all the other Lindsays, so that's just how she always wrote her name. I tried to convince her to change it whenever we were doing our marriage certificate, but she was just like, ah, I'll deal with it later. So she never officially changed it, but she's always gone. That's how she's always spelled it with me.
So how old were you when you met Lindsay?
I was, let's see, it was very close to my birthday, so I'm trying to remember. I think I was 23 when I met her. Mm, that's wrong. No, it would have been 24, I guess. 24? Yeah, I was 24 when I met her. And she, well, first off, just to give a little context, my background, I was raised in Memphis, Tennessee, which, if any of you in the South have ever been to Memphis, Tennessee, is ghetto as fuck. Like, that and Atlanta are like the two most urban spots in the South. Um, I don't really count Louisiana. I think that's a totally different territory. It's all its own kind of place. But as far as that southeast region goes, like Memphis and Atlanta are like completely urban. That's why I don't really have a country accent because I just wasn't around that whole twang sort of thing. Uh, and I was raised in a very strict conservative Christian religion called Pentecost. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of that. It's all like skirts and no makeup, don't cut your hair. It's, it's really more limiting to women than it is men. Um, but yeah, so I was raised Pentecostal, and at the time I met Lindsay, I just finished up Bible school and was really questioning my own belief system. And, I'd always been a free thinker and just asked a lot of questions. So like, and it was always so shunned on. It was always so like taboo to question anything that was taught or anything that was preached within that organization. And it's like you couldn't have any other interpretation of scripture than what was given to you, and you couldn't take any sort of information or insight from anything else outside of it. Everything outside of it is wrong. And so, me, I was just always so open minded. And, I didn't like how things were done. I didn't like how, people were treated, how people were talked about, how people were looked down upon. And so I really wanted to just, you know, remove myself from it. And one situation was that um, I guess a friend of mine, well, he wasn't a friend of mine. But he went and told one of the administrators that I was looking at porn on my machine. Of course, I was, you know, 19, 20, so like, adolescent guy in Bible college, like it was just something, you do what you gotta do, you know what I mean? And,
So you really,
so, huh?
hold on, you really looking at porn.
Yeah. I mean, like well, I was such a nerdy kid that, I knew IT. Like I was working in IT by the time I was like 16. I was working at a computer repair shop. And so like, they had like a filter system on their, Wi-Fi at the school, but I just went around it whenever, I needed to look at something or whatever because I was just the kind of kid I was. And I never bothered to like delete my browsing history because I was like, it's my computer, like nobody's gonna be on my computer. But then one day, one of the administrators like just went into my room and had me like pull up my browser history and stuff, and they made this huge thing that was like porn addict and stuff like that, which is what like all this stuff that's happened very recently really funny, um, because it all kind of harkens back to that. We've come full circle, and so like they like made an example out of me in front of like the entire ministerial staff. I had to stand there in front of like 30 people and tell them I was addicted to porn and I was working on it through counseling and therapy. And yeah, it was a very, very humiliating point in life just to have to stand there and be like, yeah, I like crank it out like every 5 minutes or something, and which wasn't the case. After all that had happened, somebody was like, you could have really sued somebody for, debasement or defamation of character or something like that because that they shouldn't have ever made you give, tell everybody your private life or personal business or whatever. And, but see, neither here nor there. It really led me to open my eyes around a lot of things that were going on within my organization. Um, because at the time I was being groomed to be like one of the main, evangelical speakers for that movement, and they were one. A lot of my friends now they preach at like these huge conferences and stuff like that, and that wasn't the, obviously that's not the route I took. Um, but like, I started actually, you know, being much more open to people who were different from me and kind of seeing their perspective of things. And it's like a lot of people, I ended up connecting with a lot of people who left that organization years down the road. And, we were always taught that when someone leaves, that, they were, backsliding was the term that we used for it, or, you know, they'd fallen from grace, or whatever you wanted to phrase it as, was kind of how we were supposed to feel like, they were banished. You should never talk to them or hang out with them because they're just filled with evil
Shun.
thoughts, blah blah blah. Yeah, they were shunned. So, we were supposed to cut off contact with them as a church body. And after reconnecting with them, it was kind of like I wish I could go back and have seen it from that perspective when I was younger, because I was like, a lot of the people who are leaving have woken up to, what I see of it now, and it's really, I get it. You know, I get why you would leave or why you would, have your own free thoughts or disagreements or whatever. And uh, nobody should feel bad about having a differing opinion. I don't think so. Anyways, long story to get to where I run into Lindsay. Um, so, uh, so I ended up moving to Nashville because I was supposed to go help a friend out with a quote unquote church he was starting, and and What is that? What is that noise? Okay. All right, it's gone.
Nice light.
Gotcha. Oh, it's very cultish, Michael. They don't like to be called that, but that's what it is. Um, so I was supposed to go to Chicago after Bible college and help my friend out with a church he'd started. So I'd left you know, a very comfortable job where I was at in Indianapolis where I was schooling. And, they'd offered me to become, a manager of like this hotel staff. And um, my friend had convinced me that, I just really felt it that you need to be here helping me and all this stuff. And I didn't even question it because he was a really great guy. Oh, Connie, it was called Indiana Bible College. Um, if you look it up on YouTube, you might find me singing on there a few times. Anyways, so once he told me, I was like, all right, if he's, because he's a good friend of mine, if he's reaching out to me, then, he must really feel like this is a good idea. And he was like telling me about the breakdown of how I get paid and stuff. And I was like, okay, well, I'm down to, come help you out, put in work. When I got there, after I'd already, quit my job, drained my bank account to, make moving arrangements and everything. Turns out it wasn't even a church. It was more like they'd set up church in the school, like an elementary school, and it was like a daycare for like 10 kids who were running around. And oh my God, like I was horrified. I was like, is this what I left all my shit for to come here? And then my friend ended up abandoning me the next week and went to like live with his girlfriend's family, and they ended up getting married and stuff. But like, just left me high and dry in this new situation that, you know, that was probably the shittiest year of my life, was in Chicago. And after that, I was just kind of like, I need to find, I need to find myself and find what works for me. And so I moved to Nashville, and the very first thing I did was go to my sister's church because I didn't have anywhere to go on Sundays and stuff like that. So I just needed something, to do. And so I ran into her in the hallway. I've been to her church before, so I knew how their like setup was, and I would be in their like college and career class, which was really, it was for people my age, but it was boring as fuck because it was run by this guy who, you ever run into those superior intellect people who, don't really take input from others, and that's anything that you say, they're just like, yeah, sorta, but and then they just continue on, usually saying something, echoing something that you'd already said or something like that, just making it as if it was their own idea. Well, that was what this guy was who ran the class. So I was like, all right, well, I'm going to find something else or something with a little bit more people up to my speed. And so I was kind of doing that, and she was in the hallway, and she was like, my brother-in-law was taking me around, and Lindsay was like, getting, uh, she was getting like water for the class or whatever, setting up in the morning. She did the greeting and stuff like that. Just helped out wherever she could. That was the type of person she was. But she like stopped us in the hallway, and she's like, "Where are you taking him?" And my brother-in-law was just like, "Oh, well, I was just showing him some of the other classes, around because he kind of wanted to be with, older people or older crowd or something like that." And Lindsay was like, "Nope, he's with us," and she just like kept walking. So I just like, I looked at my brother and I was like, oh, okay, So I just like followed her, and she's a very feisty woman. Like I think you would have really liked her. But she was just, you had to keep up with her. She was fast paced and kept you on your toes. And, when she finally got settled in, we had this conversation outside, and it just made me curious. Like, I was like, all right, I want to get to know this person. Um, so it ended up, um, I asked my sister about her, and my sister, and I'd heard things about her just because I'd heard that she had dealt with cancer or something like that before. But like, if you'd met her that day, you wouldn't have thought she had anything wrong with her at all. Um, and she'd been through chemotherapy and stuff like that. And when I asked my sister about her, and she was like, "Yeah, I think she's still fighting it." And I was like, "Okay, that's all I want to know." And then I just like went on my way. Uh, well, I ended up going to this thing there. There was a wedding there one day, and afterwards they were having like practice for their choir or something. So I just thought I'd show up, kind of hide in the background and shit. And afterwards, everybody was going out to eat, and so I asked her if she had anybody riding with her. I was like, if she did, I'd like to catch a ride with you, just make conversation or whatever. Well, I thought she had people riding with her. She would have argued to this day that I knew what I was doing, and I was asking, if I could ride alone with her. But we ended up having a conversation that night, and when she dropped me off to my car, she was like telling me that, um, because she went with someone to that wedding, and so I like, me just prying, I was just like, so that was your guy, right? And she's like, no, 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 he's a really good friend of mine. Like, I mean, he understands my position and stuff like that. And so I was like, and what's that? And she was like, I'm not going to date uh, anymore. And I was like, oh, why? Because I was like, all right, why? Um, and she was like, well, I've doctors only given me 3 to 5 years to live, and I'm not going to burden anybody with that. Like, that's not fair to them. And I was like, well, it's kind of not fair to like not give them that choice, right? And like, I don't. She was never prepared for that rebuttal, so she just like, I can still remember she was sitting forward, looking over the steering wheel, trying to think of a comeback to that. And after about, it felt like 5, 10 minutes had gone by in absolute silence. I was just like, okay, I'm gonna go, head out. I'll talk to you later. Thinking like I totally just screwed up that conversation or whatever. And she she's like, oh, okay. And so like I left, and she was like, she called her mom like immediately after, and she's like, who the hell is this guy, and what does he think that he can just question my stance on this or whatever. Like, he doesn't have lymphoma, so he can't say anything, you know. And so a month later we were dating, and
A month later?
a month later we started dating, and
Hold
and
on, did you ask her out?
oh, I mean, we talked about it. I mean, the craziest part about our relationship, and like, I mean, you know, most relationships, I feel like the kind of the standard for dating or whatever is you go on a few dates, you guys get it on, and then from there you sort of establish like a relationship dynamic. And ours was just so drenched in conversation. Um, for the first month, we stayed up like talking every night till like 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. And and the only reason we were still going to that church was just to see each other, because she was of the same mindset that, she didn't really believe everything that she was taught and wanted to kind of, you know, get away from that. So we were trying to like pick each other's brain for so long. And so, I mean, like, for a whole month straight, that's all we did. Like, we would just be sitting in her car just having conversation for hours and hours and hours. And like, the conversation never seemed to slow down or waver or anything. And so, like, and for me, that was a really good sign because, um, I'm intellect is like such a huge thing for me in conversation. It's such a huge thing for me. And so, uh, yeah, kind of, it was a wonderful thing. I mean, it was just like, um, it was just, if I couldn't get anything more than those conversations, I was happy, you know. And so like then one night we were we were dropping a friend off, and it was her friend who was, not, she was pretty loose. Well, not loose, I don't want to say loose. She was just like, she didn't go by the church standards or whatever. So she was very sexually active or whatever. And so she got out of the car and she's like, don't do anything I would do. And so it was just us. And then, like, and it was like that night, Lindsay hopped in the back seat and we got on for like 2 or 3 hours. It was hilarious. And, so, like, it was that night that Lindsay was the night before we actually ended up making it official and being together. She was like just telling me, hey, whatever happens, just make sure you pick yourself up and move on, you know. And I was like, okay, because I'm just naively thinking, you know what? Yeah, we're gonna beat this. Keep going. Like things are gonna be great. And at the time, that's what I'm thinking. It's like, okay, you know, sure, I'll agree to that. Whatever. Um, and looking back on a lot of our arguments, I think she was much more selfless in that regard than what I had realized at the time, because that was always what we were arguing about, was whether or not we should be together because, like, her shit's too much for me or something like that. But after that, we dated, and about, I want to say it was 4 months later. Wait, yeah, about 4 months later, we ended up getting engaged. Um, it's kind of hilarious because I was running into, I called this Starbucks that we always ended up at on the weekends, because she lived out a ways from me. I didn't mind driving, and so I'd always drive out to her. We'd hang out for the weekend, then we'd end up at that Starbucks at the end of the night because they were only the only place that stayed open till like 11 o'clock at night. And so, you know, I ended up calling and having them. Um, I wanted to hook up my phone and play a cover of a song that she really liked, that I'd like recorded. Uh, like it was "Marry Me" by Train. I'd actually recorded it a year earlier for my sister's wedding, and so I thought I'd play it. I thought I'd play it over there, and that would kind of be like super romantic moment. Anyways, it ended up turning into this huge fiasco, because the guy, uh, I got to the Starbucks place and was just telling him, so hey, here's my phone, here's the cords. And he's like, what are you talking about? And I was like, I called you guys earlier. And I was like, oh shit, I called you guys earlier. Like you said, you guys like could hook this up. And the guy was like, well, uh, why? Why do you need to hook it up? And I'm like, well, I was just trying to propose, no big deal, And he was like, oh shit, like, and he's like trying to work his magic. He ended up like fraying my audio cable in order to hook it up to the radio, and they were like fidgeting with it, so like the music's going super wonky like the entire time while we're in there. And I'm like, oh man, this is so embarrassing. And then they ended up finally get it working, and then like it took Lindsay a minute before she was like, oh shit, that's you singing. Like, why are you singing right now? And so yeah, so we ended up, getting engaged that night, and so we got married about a year after we met. So we got married on April 27th, in 2013, and yeah, I guess I'm skipping a lot of details,
Yeah,
but
such as the proposal.
yeah, so
How,
that was,
but I
huh?
mean, did you get down on one knee? I mean,
Oh yeah, I'm uber, like, classic romantic type guy. Like most of you would not believe that, but that's actually how I am in a relationship dynamic. Um, but so like I got down on one knee, did the whole thing. I actually have, uh, hold on a second. It's actually a Starbucks cup that they ended up giving us for the congratulations thing. So I've just always kept it since. But yeah, so yeah, so she you know, it was funny because we'd been talking about rings and stuff like that, and she'd been looking them up because she was ever the avid researcher, and she just didn't want me to go without knowing like what she wanted, so that she wouldn't be disappointed and I wouldn't be disappointed because I got her the wrong thing. So it was funny. The store I was actually looking at, I picked out the ring that I wanted to get, and I'd already put a down payment on it. And then she called me one day on the way home from work, and she's like, "Hey, have you checked out this store? I was just looking there on there today, and I found one that I think is like perfect." And I was like, "Okay, well, I've already gotten something, so why don't you just wait you know, until I've already picked out something that I think would be ideal. So why don't we just wait until that day happens, if that happens. And so it ended up being like the exact ring that she had looked at and had like really wanted. Um, so my mom actually has those held because like I don't want to lose them. So she keeps
Yeah.
them there at her house. But yeah, so it's just like all of our memories are filled with like these little moments where we just couldn't have planned these things. And so we got married on April 27th, and it was coming up around her birthday. And we talked about family and stuff like that. And her lymphoma was starting to like act up. If you guys don't know what lymphoma is, it's cancer of the lymph nodes, basically. And so your lymph nodes swell up, and you have like incredible amounts of pain there. Um, Anyways, her lymph nodes were starting to act up more, and so uh, we decided that we were going to move back in with her parents, at least, and until we got things figured out with her health and stuff like that. And I was still going into the office at the time, so I wanted her to be okay, and have somebody there for her in case she needed.
But,
So
hey,
we
real
ended
quick,
up doing that.
real
Yeah.
quick, while you guys were courting and dating, was she in remission at any point, or
She
was
was
it?
never she was never officially in remission. She had a rare case of, they couldn't even categorize it as non-Hodgkin's or Hodgkin's lymphoma. They said it acts more like non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, but we can't really specify which what exactly it is. Like her lymph nodes would go down in swelling, and then some days they blowed up, and then some days they go down. And there was never any real reaction to chemotherapy or any treatments that she tried. So she did several biopsies. We were in and out of hospitals getting, having consultations and meetings and all this stuff, especially when she got pregnant. And so we moved back in with her parents so that she could have somebody to be there for her in case anything ever happened. And it was getting around her birthday, and she was saying, "All right, I know this is a crazy request, but like the one thing I'd want for my birthday is to be pregnant." So I was like, you know, and if she was a stage 3 lymphoma patient, and she hadn't had a cycle in months, um, well over a year. And they told her that it was a very slim chance that she'd ever be able to get pregnant, much less carry to full term. So, um, we're like, okay, we'll try. I mean, and she was like, because she just started getting her period again, and she was like, we should definitely try. And I was like, okay, we'll try, you know. And it's just one of those things. It was on the first try we made it happen, and she was pregnant. We went in for checkups
Look
for the
at
next 3 months.
you
Yeah,
on the first try, man.
first
Well
try.
done.
So she was going around bragging about how strong my swimmers were, and I was like, Lindsay, this is that TMI. You don't have to tell that. And and so because we're like talking to all of our like super conservative Christian friends, and she's like, yeah, his sperm is like so strong, and I was like, it's like Lindsay, chill, and so she was super excited. I've never seen the woman smile that big except our wedding day, and so we ended up, because we wanted to wait until we were in, because a 3 month timeline is like after 3 months you're pretty much in the clear, for carrying. And her lymphoma was just getting worse and worse because Lila was taking so much nutrients from her because she needed that to grow and stuff. And so after 3 months we announced it finally, and then things with her parents went south. It was really odd, and this is what's caused the rift between us. Um, we weren't coming like her parents. She she has a mentally handicapped brother. I forget exactly what it is they has, but I want to say he's autistic. I can't. I'm not sure if that's exactly it, but like he can't speak, and he has to have he has to be bathed and have his diaper changed and stuff like that. So he was 30 years old at the time, and so her mom stayed at home and took care of him all the time because she was super paranoid that she couldn't put him in a home or put him in a nursing center or anything like that because he was just super paranoid that something would happen to him. So we got to the point where Lindsay couldn't, like, she didn't want to be. Uh, we were upstairs in our own room at their house, and it got to the point where Lindsay didn't want to be around that, and her mom was not the best cook. She overcooked all the food. Her dad was about the same way, and so she was getting more and more picky about food because she was pregnant at the time. So she wanted certain things and stuff like that, and just one of those nights where we were just like, okay, well, we'll just go out and get. I'll just go out and get something. We'll just stay up here and snuggle and watch a movie or something like that. And so we got back, and then our parents like texted her and told us that we needed to talk, and then they just went off on her and were just like, "What's your problem with us? Like, why are you acting this way towards us?" And we were just kind of like startled by this sudden issue that we apparently had with them. And they were telling us her dad had just lost his job, and so now they were like, having to get unemployment and work on things. And we'd moved into their house, and we'd actually asked them, how much rent they needed from us and stuff like that, and they just refused us every time. Which I never felt good about that in the first place, just because I don't like feeling like I'm getting a handout or anything like that. And they were, during this conversation, they were like calling us, mooches and telling us that we, were just leeching off, you know, everything in their house. And, you
Oh
know,
my God.
and I'm like, I moved in so you guys could be here for Lindsay in case anything happened while I was at work. Like, you know, we'll get out of your house, if that's what you really want. And so, like, it was a terrible night because Lindsay was super emotional and crying, and she couldn't feel Lila kick, so she thought she might have lost the baby. I mean, it was just a really bad night.
How far,
And
how far along
huh?
was she again? How far along was she?
At the time, she was right at 7 months, and we had been planning on moving to Florida because we had a lot more friends my age who lived around there. So, a month later, we ended up moving to Orlando, try to help my friend with church thing, and this would end up being our last attempt at doing anything to do with the Pentecostal organization. And my friend wanted me to come help them out with their music department and help get everyone up to speed and make their program better. So I was like, okay. And, we end up getting down there. And, the problem with helping people is if they don't execute on anything you try to help them with, then there's nothing you can do. And so that would be our last straw with that. And so we ended up having Lila. Lindsay went to get a checkup, and they found that Lila was too small. And so they were like, we need to, she's not getting the proper amount of resources, nutrients. So we need to like get her out. So they're like, okay. So at this point in time, she's a month premature. We're at the hospital, and they're telling us, okay, yeah, you're actually already in labor. And she's like, you're actually already having contractions? And Lindsay was like, I haven't felt a single thing. So we were like, oh shit, we're having contractions. Like, we're about to have a baby. Like, this is crazy. And they were actually going to, and Lindsay was a tiny thing. Like, she wasn't, she could eat like a linebacker, and she was still just like this petite frame of a woman. And I was always jealous of that. But they were going to induce labor, and they were going to do natural birth, and Lindsay was like, no, that's not happening. And she was like, we're doing cesarean, or I'm not having this baby. And so and they were like, okay, but we strongly advise. And she said no. And so they just anything that we thought we were going to get charged on, because we're a young couple, and every time they send someone in to consult with you, they send you a bill for it. And we're like, we're not paying for that. So they were sending oncologists in, and all sorts of things, like for her cancer, because her lymphoma had gotten so bad. And we were like, go away, we do not want this consultation, I'm not paying for this. And so it ended up her birthday would fall on May 18th, which is a combination of our birthdays, because I was born on May 12th and Lindsay was born September 18th. So Lyle would end up being born on like the perfect combination of our birthdays, and we couldn't have planned that at all. And Sarah, to answer your question, Lila was 3 pounds 15 ounces when she was born. Tiniest
And that
little
was
thing. Yeah, and that was C-section. And she never had a single health problem during our first year. Never had a cold, never had a
Hold
fever,
on.
nothing.
You said 3 pounds.
15 ounces.
Oh my gosh, that's tiny.
Oh, she was super tiny. Like I could almost hold her in my hand. She was so small.
So how long did she have to stay in the hospital?
She stayed in 10 days, and that was only to get her weight above 4 pounds. Because she fluctuated with weight because of fluids and food and stuff like that up until she was like actually eating a lot. And so she ended up, and she's still tiny for her age. Like, I don't think that'll change. Of course, me and Lindsay are both short, so that's kind of expected. But she only stayed there to get her weight up. Like, she had no other complications at all. It was really miraculous, because as soon as we got done at the hospital, we went straight into trying to attack, the lymphoma with Lindsay. And that would be the last time Lindsay would try anything to do with chemotherapy because she never wanted to go back and do it in the first place. But now she had a daughter and she wanted to be a mom. And that was always like the dream was to have a family, Um, but she was like, I can't do that if I'm not alive. I can't be a mom if I'm not alive. And so I was like, okay, then we'll do this. I never wanted to force her one way or another. I was like, if you want to fight this, then we'll fight it. If you don't, then we won't. And so we ended up going in. We do like inpatient chemotherapy. It'd be about 3 days each session, and she would do that for about once every 5 weeks was supposed to be the plan. And then the next phase of it, if we agreed to continue, was to do a bone marrow transplant. And, I don't know if you've ever heard of doing those, but basically they drain you of all the bone marrow that you have and replace it. And it takes about a year's worth of recovery to get back to where, your body's accepted it, you're producing your own bone marrow now, and it's supposed to help boost your immune system. But that long of a recovery time, we were kind of like, we were a little bit worried about it. And Lindsay was reading case after case of these bone marrow transplants where people didn't go for just one treatment. They ended up having to go a second and third time. And she was like, I don't want to do this. And so right from the get-go, we were like, that's not an option. We're not doing that. And this was like where all of my whole, no offense to anybody who believes in doctors and the medical industry and big pharma and all that, but I think a lot of the industry is super corrupt. And we ended up like our doctor was supposed to be the best in the business in the country. We were like the people who came to see us, all the nurses were like, oh yeah, like you're so lucky you got him because he's like known throughout the country for being like the lymphoma specialist or whatever. We're like, all right, cool. But he wasn't like during I think our third trip out there, or no, it was our second trip out there. He wasn't there because he was on vacation, and so we're like, okay, yeah, it's summer, I get that. Well, then the third time we came in, mind you, these were like 5 weeks apart. He wasn't there again, and he was also on vacation. So you're like, okay, well, like, how many vacations does he take a year? You know what I mean? Like, is he always on vacation? And they're like, oh yeah, he'll be back in like a week or so, and so we were like, okay, this is just ridiculous. And then the fourth time, we were there, and she ended up getting an MRI, and they said to us, they're like, hey, so we're, since you're about to be released, if we get anything back that you need to be concerned about, we'll give you a call, and we'll figure out what to do from there. So you're like, okay, cool. And so we went home, and 5 weeks went by, and we were just thinking to ourselves, oh, the results must have been good because nobody called us. Well, we ended up driving in for like our fifth visit, and we got set up in the room. They got our port all set up, hooked her up to IVs, everything. And doctor comes in, and he's looking at the MRI. He's like, hey, so we got to figure out something else. And I just lost it. because I was just so mad that, it just sat there, like, on their shelf for 5 weeks, and I didn't do anything about it. And so, like, I was just going off on this guy. I think I scared the hell out of him because he was one of those college, doctors doing his, what do they call that? Call that when the doctors have to, like, when they're still in college and they got to do, like,
Dissertation?
huh?
Dissertation?
No, damn it. It's where
Residency?
they, residency, yeah. So this guy was doing his residency. I think I scared the hell out of him. I was like, this must be great for you guys. Like, you can just shove her MRI up on the shelf, and, like, for 5 weeks we're thinking everything is great, but that 5 weeks is very valuable to me, like, because that's 5 weeks we could have done shit. That's 5 weeks that we won't get back, that we could have been making arrangements to do something else or have a plan of attack, and now we've lost that. Like, thanks. Like, I'm so happy I can pay for your vacation trips. I'm so happy I can pay for the doctor to be on, his business trip that he's now on, which is probably also somewhere tropical. Like, so happy for you guys. Like, thank you for wasting our fucking time. And like, he'd had this woman on the phone who was doing all of our scheduling, and she's like, "Yeah, Mr. Easter, if you could just calm down, and, like, we'll schedule you guys to come in." I was like, "No, we will not be doing that. Like, he's no longer our doctor. We're going home." And so, like, we got in the car. Lindsay was super upset because she just, like, all faith in any doctor whatsoever, because, like, in her mind they didn't care, like, she was put up on the shelf and just left there until she showed back up, and they're like, "Oh fuck, we forgot to look at her MRI," you know, and it shouldn't be that way. And so, she was like, "I don't ever want to do chemotherapy ever again." And I was like, "Okay, then you won't, we won't ever do that again." And uh, so that was our year in Florida, and we ended up, hating it. Um, and so we ended up uh, we ended up moving back to Tennessee because, nothing with my friend's thing worked out. He actually ended up, he was supposed to be my best friend, and he ended up abandoning us, um and, like, I never heard from him again until Lindsay's funeral. But, and then the crazy thing is, his dad died from cancer, and I ended up leaving Lindsay in the hospital to do treatment to go to his dad's funeral. Um, but anyway, so, like, we moved back to Tennessee, and then that's when Lindsay started really, really going south. And we were in our little spot, and I was working from home at the time, and we had Lila, who was a newborn, who was delayed on everything. She had muscular developmental delays, so we had to do physical therapy, occupational therapy, developmental therapy. She's now in speech therapy, and so we had all of these things, um, that we had to do. So I'm, like, getting, like, Lindsay's going downhill. I'm super stressed because I'm trying to, like, do the workload of two people, like, for everything. So I'm, like, running around like a chicken with its head cut off, just trying to get shit done, and get Lila to appointments, Lindsay to appointments, work full time, and, Lindsay's breathing started getting worse. So then we had to get an oxygen machine put into our house that, like, if you've ever seen one of those, I don't know if your husband had one of those, but those things are loud
No,
as
he didn't.
fuck.
Yes,
Um,
they are loud as fuck. He didn't have them. No.
yeah. So she had one of those things, and, like, she could never sleep at night, so she ended up sleeping during the day when, like, her body was just finally exhausted, and then she was just passed out on the couch, like, in fetal position. Like that was the only way I ever saw her slept there. Like she barely slept in our bed. Um, so there's that, and then in like June, she June or it was around June, I think. She like got really bad, and we went to the hospital, and she started. We were up in a hospital room, and I had seen all these doctors swarm in when I was just going out to the car to get something. I was like, oh fuck, and that was just like that. It all just hit me, like, because you see your like uh immortality sort of slowly chipped away from you as you like battle these things, because you go in so strong-willed and you think, yeah, I'm going to beat this, and then you're like, as you continue on, you slowly start to see the inevitable, and you're like, fuck, like I can't do shit about this, and you kind of feel you feel so uh,
Defeated.
yeah, and it was just like I was seeing this thing happen, like slowly over time, and I was like, you can't win. And so, when I saw this moment, I was just like, damn, and it just really hit me like all at the same time. And Lindsay's trying to calm me down, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Like I've done everything I can do. And so that weekend, she ended up like, I guess she'd had a blockage like in her esophagus that built up over time from something. Because she'd had, I guess she'd gotten pneumonia at one point in time, and whenever she gets something like that or bronchitis or something like that, it always takes her a lot longer to recover because she has lymphoma, and because that's your immune system, right? So, uh, so she'd had this blockage like built up from like the winter, I guess, because we'd stayed at my parents' house, and like um, the AC wasn't working properly, so it was super cold in our room. But if we opened the door, it was super hot, and we could never get the balance right. And she ended up getting sick from that. And so she ended up coughing up this blockage, and it was like she was back to being old Lindsay. So like I had my old Lindsay back there for a little while, and like she went to bed and slept, and she got up and she went out and ran errands, and I actually have, I don't think I have it out here. I actually have like the last little thing she wrote, and it was like she was so excited. She was like, "Hey, I'm gonna be out. I'm gonna be running errands. So if you don't see me in the morning, I love you." And so she was just so excited to get back out in the world and like do normal shit. And so for like 3 months there, it was just perfectly normal. And she could breathe. She was doing dishes. She was like playing with Lila and just loving her life. And we actually thought that we'd had some sort of a breakthrough with her condition. So we were like, okay, if that's all it was, then maybe we're good. Anyway, so like September rolls around, and uh, I'm starting to plan stuff for her birthday dinner because I always cook for her on her birthday. And so like I'm starting to plan all this stuff, and then all of a sudden it's like she just starts getting bad again. And you know, come to find out the blockage has actually just opened up the doorway for her lymphoma to spread even more. So we couldn't win either way, because it was causing her not to breathe, but it was also like stopping her lymphoma from spreading. And then that week was like, it was right after we'd had a friend over for dinner, and then the next day she said, "Call your mom." And so I called my mom, and I was like, "Fuck, you gotta have her," come in, if it's that bad, like it's really bad if she's having me call my mom, you know. So like my mom comes in and so we end up going to the hospital that night and setting up in a room. And so my dad comes in, my sisters come in, and so we're all just at the hospital. I'm trying to work and keep my shit together because I'm supposed to be, like in my family, like I'm the strong one, you know. Like we all kind of have our roles, but like me, whenever they needed somebody to be emotionally kept together or emotionally strong, I was supposed to be the guy. And so, I was trying to keep my composure together, and like, I'm trying to work. My boss calls me. I'm like explaining the situation. I'm like, I think I gotta take off work, like at least for a few days until we get past this. And he was like, okay, yeah, take as much time as you need. Let us know if you need anything. Like, you just go take care of whatever it is you need to take care of. Like, all right, cool. And so, Lindsay had been trying to rekindle things with her parents, for the last month or so, because she's like, if I'm gonna leave this world, I don't want to leave it with anything, like, I want to leave with anything not taken care of. So we're like, okay. Um, so she was in communication with them again. They'd moved to North Carolina at this point in time, so we were never going to see them. And I'd already stated my stance when it came to them with Lila. I was like, no, you know what? I don't. I'd love it if you want to rekindle things, or if you want to, get reconnected with them. But like as far as their involvement with Lila, I always will have a say on, like, if they have any involvement with her. Like, I'll put my foot down there. And she goes, okay, that's fine. And that was the last conversation we ever had about it. But then that week she was like, you know, I want my mom and dad here. And I was like, all right. Um, I was like, I was just like whispering in her ear, just kind of like reminding her of the drama that we dealt with the last time we'd been around her parents, which was about a year now. It was over a year now. And I was like, look, are you sure that's a good idea? And she's like, Gabe, just suck it up and deal with it. Okay. And I was just like, okay. And so I like left the room and just had a meltdown in like they had this little garden conservatory area with a couple benches on it. I just like broke down just there in the privacy of that garden. And because in my mind that signified like, wow, we're really speeding towards the end, because she would never call for her parents to come here if it weren't this serious. So like me, I'm sort of like, seeing things like unraveling, and I'm like, this is going to be a bad week. And so he's on a BiPAP machine now, and I don't know if you've ever been around those, but you can't hear yourself think with those. Like, it forces in air and it forces out air. Like, so it's basically breathing for you. It's like the last step before they sedate you and put you on a pump. So, we're just around this loud machine, and they go do they end up doing some sort of radiotherapy. Fuck, what's it called? It's been so long since I've radiation. That's it. They do radiation therapy on her a couple times to see if that'll help out. It doesn't do shit, and like by now it's like, I'm like, there's nothing you can do. We've thrown everything at it, literally everything at it, and there's nothing we can do. And so they were going to transfer her. They ended up transferring her to the ICU at this other hospital, and in my head I was like, this is where people go to die, so sort of this, and my whole week is all run together because I've been up all night with Lindsay because I don't want her, you know, I want to be awake whenever she's awake just in case she needs anything. So I haven't slept all week. So it's all just one really continuous day. And so that week, um, that point in time was very, and we were in the ambulance on the way over to this hospital, and she wanted me to take pictures of her. I was like, uh, okay. And she's like, um, I was like saying why, and she was like, because I'm going to write about this later. And I was like, okay, okay, cool. And so, we ended up uh, we ended up being in the ICU, and it was almost, that day I was like, you can't leave me until you turn 27. And her birthday was like 2 days away. So she was like, okay, deal, you know. And she was always the sort that was like, yeah, I'm gonna beat this. So like even like towards the end, she was like, I'm gonna beat this. But I think deep down she knew. I think there was like a part of her that was just, trying to prepare herself while also trying to keep up the faithfulness of like, yeah, I'm gonna crush it. And so like it was like that night before her birthday, I just stayed up right until midnight because I was always wanted to be the first to tell her. So like I like nudged her and told her happy birthday, and she's like, she knew how exhausted I was, and she's like, you stayed up all night just to say that. I was like, well, yeah. I mean, you're turning 27 today. So so um that day I could go on about, but um they ended up my brother-in-law ended up picking up flowers for her on her on her birthday, and the flower shop gave like this huge bouquet of lilies, and those were her favorite flowers. So like she had these flowers, and just some more context. She always feared that she was going to die alone, and that she always she always just thought she was going to be alone at the end. And that day, it was Friday, we had like people, we had about 40, 50 people just come in and out just to tell her happy birthday. And that morning, her oxygen levels were like at low 70s. And they just, for some reason during that morning, they just went up to like mid to high 80s. And so they were able to turn off the BiPAP machine. She was back to feeling like her normal self. It was really, you know, I, it, my whole belief system is something I'd need to go more in detail of later, but like as far as I knew, that was a God thing, you know. I was like, that doesn't just happen, you know. And so on our birthday, she was just able to laugh and able to talk to everyone and not be like encumbered by the physical pain or the breathing or any of that. And so she just had a really great birthday, surrounded by all these people that she loved dearly. And I had a friend of mine. He'd lost his wife the year before. He was much older than I am, but he like sat down to talk with me, and the first thing I said was like, "We're not going to see the weekend." And like, I think I just knew, you know. And so our doctor had walked in. The doctor had walked in, and like she was done with doctors at this point. And the doctor came in, and he was like, "Look, here's the situation." He's like, "I'm not even gonna lie to you. It's not good." He said, your lungs have been completely eaten up by lymphoma. He's like, so even if we do beat this thing, you'll have no lungs. And he was like, now, what I'm going to suggest is doing this, this, or this. And he said, but, even as a doctor, he's like, I have seen, and I do believe in miracles. So he's like, anything's possible. And she was just so at ease after that. She turned to me and she's like, I like this guy. And so, we had a bunch of people in there and we were all just we were all wishing her happy birthday and stuff. And then, um, after everybody was walking out, she like hugged me and she's like, listen to me, just make sure Lila grows up like in church and like just make sure she grows up around people who love her. And it's like, you can do that whenever we get out of here, and she was like, just promise me. And I was like, okay, and it was in one of those conversations that she was talking to somebody and she was telling them, she was like, yeah, I'm going to beat this and then I'm going to write a book and I'm going to share it with the whole world. And I was like, I made a silent vow to myself that, if you're not able to write that book, I will, and it was right around the time that everyone left. I don't know if you can hear Lila back there, but she's awake. Yeah. She's usually not awake. But anyway, so she ends up, it was the end of the day, and I still remember everything happening. And hold on just a second. Let me go check on her real quick. Hold on.
Can you remind me? Isn't that cute? And now I just stand here and smile and wave. Smile and wave, boy. Smile and wave. She is a doll. Yes. Standing by. Thank you, Sarah. If I had Brian Taylor's voice, please stand by. I have a miracle baby too. Hi, Sarah.
Okay, so sorry, she's it's the night before she goes back to school. So, she so like it's her birthday, and it's around 10 p.m. Are you guys talking about how she dresses?
No, I just kind of sat here uncomfortably. Actually, not even uncomfortably. I just sat here. I'm dad right now.
Oh, she's really easy. I've been so blessed. She's so easy for me. But so it's her birthday, right? At this point, she's had it's been her best birthday thus far, and so she's I still remember she ended up releasing her bodily fluids and stuff, and they had to clean her up and get her chains and everything. And my mom was like freaking out because she was like, she's about to go, and they ended up giving her a sedative and getting her like all settled in, so she was like just kind of a fading version of herself at this point. And I remember her dad walking out and just saying, I love you, kid. And she goes, I love you too, daddy. And like, it wasn't even, I mean, it was just so crazy how things happened after that. Because, like, you know, I guess 10, 15 minutes had gone by. And then all of a sudden, her, like, breathing just, like, plummeted. Like, she was having such a great day. And then all of a sudden, it was just like, it just skyrocketed downwards to, you know, low 70s again. And so they like ramped up her BiPAP machine and put her on the mask and everything. And my first thing I said was, "Are you ready?" And she didn't even hesitate. She was like, "Yes," you know. And I was just like, "Okay, I love you," you know. And she was like, "I love you too." And then she was, because she was so spiritual, and she was, I see Jesus, I hear Jesus. It's like, thank you, Jesus. And then, you know, I knew she was I knew she was gone at that point. And so it's like I didn't need to see the rest. I didn't need to see that uh, to know that she'd left. Um, so she she her dad and everyone showed back up, and I was kind, I didn't want to like turn around and be like, I mean, she's gone, like she's not here, you know, like even though she still had a heart rate and she was still breathing and stuff, technically, I was like, she's not here anymore, like, I know that, like her dad's trying to pray her back to life, and I was like, no, don't do that, I was like, if there's a way to go, I couldn't have scriptured a better way to exit, and why would I want her back here to suffer, you know? And so like we're just sitting there, and like they're asking, we have all of these people who came to see her for her birthday, and they all, walk up, and because the nurses are like, um, this, the last thing they say that goes is hearing, and so um, everybody just filed into a line, and just wit and whispered whatever secrets they wanted to share with Lindsay for the last time, and they everybody got to say a goodbye, and I was just like, this is crazy how this is such a dream realized. Like she didn't want to be alone when she died, and she had all these people, you know so um and then I watched the machine count down to zero, and that was kind of the last moment that we had, and and it was like everybody left the room, and it was just me, and she was leaning on me, this heavy version of a woman, you know, just I mean, I felt like I was holding up a wall of bricks. She was just so much heavier, and I think I spent another 15, 20 minutes just sitting there holding her, you know, and so we walked out that night, and once I got home, I mean, that was crazy, but it was perhaps it's probably the best night of sleep I had had in a long time. It was just, this burden that I'd had for so long finally you know, came to resolution, So, so yeah, that was uh that was our story, and so I started uh I started writing our story like in bits and pieces over the last few years, and it's almost done. So I'm thinking I'll get it done this year, and that's been oh, what's it been? 3 years now, almost. Yeah, September will be 3 years. So yeah, so I guess I can kind of tell you how all of this came about. Um, so really, if we wanted to segue into that, unless anybody has any questions. Okay, I'll just continue then. Uh, so like for a whole year, I was just kind of on autopilot, just kind of like doing my thing. So I deal mostly with things in isolation. Like I just deal best with them on my own. Uh, Mostly because you know, I was telling you about how my best friend, like he texted me the night of Lindsay's funeral and was telling me that he couldn't make it off work to come to her funeral. Like, all right, cool. You know, last I ever heard from him after that. So then, so like I've mostly relied on myself, so I don't generally rely on people to help me out. So when it came to dealing with my own shit, I just wanted to deal with it on my own. Uh, Woke up. Um, it all that whole week kind of felt like a dream, you know, but it's so vivid in my memory. Like that whole week is so vivid in my memory. Yeah, well,
Teresa,
I was, huh?
real quick, Teresa pointed out it's called the rally when they start to they start to they act the way they used to, and you're like, oh well, yeah, we got this. We're gonna kick this, cancer's ass,
Oh, yeah.
and that's exactly how Chad was a couple days before. He was my sweet sweet Chad, and then
Yeah.
boom, it turned
Oh, I didn't know it
quickly.
was
But
like
I
a
wanted to
thing.
point out that Teresa, yeah, I've noticed it in a lot of people that I've talked to who has lost someone to cancer is that, oh, our nurses call it a surge.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
And Teresa says perk up and rally for the family. So even as our loved ones are dying, they are trying
Wow, that's amazing.
to come.
I didn't know it was a thing. But
Yeah. Yeah, and that whole the surreal, it felt surreal. And those vivid memories that you have they lessened any, or do they still remain?
uh this is why I haven't finished my book because days that certain memories like really trigger in my mind are the best days to write about them because they become just so clear, you know. Like I remember high points and I remember like the outcomes of certain conversations and stuff like that, but I can't remember the context or any of the, you know, things surrounding those moments. And so trying to it's much more than just saying, "Oh, hey, we had this conversation and then this happened." Like there has to be some sort of lead in and lead out with those things. But often when I think of like most of our story is very clear in my mind, and sometimes they're more clear than others. But that whole week, like, I can replay that entire week in my head almost verbatim. So, surreal. It wasn't. I think and this was just my experience. Maybe I think I've gotten this from a lot of other people who've dealt with terminal illness, but for me, I started grieving so much sooner than when it happened that it didn't seem surreal at all. It was just kind of like, okay, uh, we finally arrived at the destination point that we feared, you know, and
It was
like,
really surreal.
yeah,
It, I mean, that just shows how different we all cope and experience things. But it was,
yeah,
I knew it was coming. I knew it. I
right,
wrote in my journal, and but it was still surreal walking around thinking, did that really just fucking happen?
yeah. I don't think I ever, and that was what was so crazy is like, with the way she went out and everything, I never really experienced the denial or the anger phases of grief or whatever. I think those came out in, like, I think those might have came out earlier or came out in different formats. Um, and I never really was angry that Lindsay was gone, or I would never really was like in denial of it happening. It was just so bittersweet how it happened that it was just like, okay, if she was going to go, that was the perfect way to go. So I was content almost with like how it happened. So, because like, I got to say goodbye. I got to say at last I love you, and you know, most people in marriages that are 10 times as long as what we had don't get that opportunity. So, for me, that was just a blessing in itself just to be able to have those moments and be able to, I don't know, just have some sort of finality in those closing moments. And yeah, it was just, for me, it was all like, because I'm so goal oriented that like the next day I was like, all right, let's figure out how to get this funeral, like let's figure out what we need to do for this funeral. And it was like, let's figure out what the new normal is for me and Lila. Like I was like, all right, next thing, next thing, next thing, next thing, you know, just just kind of, yeah, autopilot is really the best way to describe it. I was just like, okay, next goal, next goal, next goal. And then I think the other thing was like after about during that time, I ended up joining a dark humor group. Like probably about March, someone added me to this dark humor group, and it was about 300 people, and super active every day. I ended up getting involved in it and found myself like swept up in it and really enjoying, the content and everything there. And ended up adminning that group for a little while. And one of the members of that group, which I actually met her this weekend, her name's Yasmin. She added me to Grief Anonymous, which is another grief support group out there. But it wasn't really my style. It was a whole lot of sadness, just sadness on sadness on sadness. So I just didn't really get involved. And then I met Laura, which would be the person that I dated uh, after it was the one and only person I've dated since Lindsay passed away. And I met her about 18 months after Lindsay passed away, maybe a little, maybe 15. I'm not sure. The dates are fuzzy. It was in January, so it's about. Anyways, you get what I'm saying. It's about, yeah. Anyways, that's beside the timing isn't really what's important. But I ended up dating her for about 3 months, and she didn't want to like go, she didn't want to get like super physical until we got to like, a serious point in our relationship and stuff. And she had huge commitment issues. I should have seen a lot of red flags then, but I was just so like, this was new. Like, okay, finally someone's come along who's captured my attention. And so I started, she asked me to come down one weekend and bring Lila with me. And so I ended up staying with her, and we ended up getting super physical that night. I made her breakfast in the morning. We went out, did the whole family thing. She bought Lila shit, and just to me, in my eyes, it was a great weekend. And in her eyes, I guess it wasn't. So, like after that week, she distanced herself, and she ended up ghosting me about a week or two later, and I was like, okay, and I just went into this huge depression, PTSD. Um, just I was super triggered. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat, and like the logical side of me was like, all right, she doesn't like you, move on, like go on to the next thing. I think everything else in my head was like triggered because it was like all of a sudden this person who was consistent in my life wasn't there again, and it was like recalling, you know, everything that happened with Lindsay, and I was like, fuck, like I gotta shake this, because this isn't the person I am. I'm not, you know, this emotionally needy person. Like I don't need to be dealing with this shit. And so I was uh I was it was around that time that I started trying to be more active in this Grief Anonymous group, just trying to give like I don't know advice or talk to people or try to get to know people in there, because helping people always got my mind off things. So I was like, all right, I'll try to help out wherever I can. And so I was a moderator in there for about a month or two, but I just wasn't active in there. It just wasn't appealing to me. And then one day, about a year after, it was so all this happened about a year after I joined that group. Then one day, one Miss Michelle Miller added me as a friend on Facebook from that group, and I started following her posts, and I thought she was funny as fuck, and I was like, this is more my style. I dig this, and so we ended up talking a little bit about like writing books and stuff. She just, she was doing her boys' booze and bathroom floors at the time, and great read, by the way. You guys should check it out. Plug there,
It is.
shamelessly.
Yes,
But
it is a great.
it's a great read. Um, and so and I didn't really do much after that. I was just like I followed Michelle, and then I was kind of like just doing my own thing. I'd left this dark humor group, um, and now I was just trying to like fall into a new normal and just kind of like do things right and get my mind off this stuff that like had me so depressed and shit. And then it was actually just a few days ago. It was a year ago. I think it was yesterday. Anyways, a year ago, yesterday, I believe, Michelle went live with John Polo and Kelly Lynn. Hold on, am I there? Am I there?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, okay. Anyways, um, so a year ago yesterday, Michelle went live with John Polo and Kelly Lynn, and I hopped on, and I was just asking questions to them and interacting with them, and they were telling me that like the median age was like mid 30s and stuff like that. I was like, what the fuck? Like, why am I not there? You know? and they're talking about Camp Widow and stuff like that. And then I ended up friending John and Kelly, and hopped on one of John's posts. Like, I started interacting on some of John's posts, and got to know some of the people from his post, and they started adding me to these other grief groups, which I guess I was totally aloof to the existence of other grief groups. So I started getting added to all these grief groups, and I thought it was so crazy how many there were. I was like, why are there so many different ones? And they're like, oh, well, yeah, they all just kind of have their different style and different format or whatever. And, the one consistent thing I saw in all of them was that there were rules in all of them. Like, and none of them were funny to me. Like, there was all like, I don't mind people sharing their stories. Don't get me wrong. And I was like, there's so many, like, we as humans are just so dynamic as people. Like, I feel like, you know, humor was a big thing that got me through a lot of the shit. So the dark humor group that I joined, I was like, why isn't there something like that on Facebook? Like for widowed people. And so one day I put this group together, and I threw like 100, 200 people in here just off my friends list who I knew were in these other grief groups. And at first, it really was just me posting stupid memes. I was trying to dip my toes in, because dark humor it's not for the faint of heart. Like, if you look up the definition of dark humor or black comedy or whatever, like, it covers quite a spectrum of things that would trigger a lot of people in this group. And so I was trying to be very cautious of what I posted, because I wasn't sure what people were like okay with. I didn't know where the line was. I didn't want to, like, you know, jump the gun and then everybody just leave and, like, okay, yeah, we're not doing that. Um, but my only thing that I wanted for the group was to not have any rules, because I hate rules. So all I wanted people to do is just be adults and respect each other. And, like, if you can do that, cool. If not, whatever, leave. I don't care. Um, so we ended up we had our first, like, complaint posts. I think there was a few people in here that um a few notable members in here. Callan McWilliams, I think, was one of them. His he posted a he posted a meme that got a lot of people triggered, because it just happened recently to someone in the group, and so they were like, that was way too far across the line. That was my first, like, dramatic uh thing in the group,
First
and
of
I was like,
many.
oh fuck. Yeah, first of many. It ended up being like a monthly thing. There would always be like something happen each month. Uh, and then the next time I made a post mortem thread, because I'd never seen one of those in any of these other groups, and it was like some people could not handle that thread, and and don't go searching for it, guys, unless you can really handle that, because it's a very explicit thread. Like, you go say some shit that'll probably upset you on there. Like, so yeah, so that was the next thing. And then my next thing, and this is where people started hating me. Um, I remember made a, I was going to Poland, and I was making a Holocaust meme thread, because I just love Holocaust memes. I think they're so funny. Um, you know, it's not because of. Anyways, I don't need to explain myself, but Holocaust memes are hilarious. Um, and so I made a thread, and I was like, okay, everybody, I am going to Poland. I'm about to go to Auschwitz, and so I'd like to see Holocaust memes while I'm walking around Auschwitz. You know, because Auschwitz was super heavy, and I was like, yeah, so I could totally use some like humor while I'm like walking around Auschwitz, thinking about all the bad things that happened here, and um, and nobody posted a single meme in that post. Um, and people got like super heated. Uh, we had like several people leave the group, and then people started talking shit about the group. I was also in, so I could like see it all. I was like, "Hey guys," and so it was just we just this thing blew up, and all of a sudden, you know, everybody was like trying to define what dark humor was. And and that was the first time I ever had to field like any questions or anything like that. I was just like, look, guys, dark humor isn't for everyone. Like, this is, dark humor is laughing at shit that you shouldn't laugh at, essentially. And I like
Yeah.
specifically don't post shit in here because I know it will trigger people. Like, I just know it will. So I was just like, okay, um, maybe we've got things settled. But it ended up being one thing after another. It didn't matter what it was. Every so often something would just happen and people would just go ballistic, and we'd have this huge argument or debate of whether it's right to post these things or wrong to post these things. Um it was crazy. Uh But what was even crazier was how quickly our group has grown and how much it's evolved since those early days. Because I remember those early days, like even our sexy sexy threads or whatever were super super risque, and
Yeah,
you
I
know,
remember doing, and
yeah,
that was one of the first threads that came up, and I was like, shit, okay, might as
yeah, and
well.
people were, and it was just like so much of this stuff was happening. And but as time went on, we kind of fell into a sort of um, pattern of doing things. And I think we've kind of hit our stride with this group what's made this group great. And I mean, I think the thing that makes it great is how much we continue to evolve and come up with new ideas and new ways to help each other out. And the latest thing being these live shows where we're getting to know the members of the group, and you know Monique is helping us with fitness stuff. Wade was helping us with self defense, and Sarah's doing the bachelor thing, and you and Missy, and now Brian's interviewing people on Tuesdays. I mean, it's just we've sort of like it's never been a one trick pony in this group, and I think that's what's so beautiful about it is because as people, we're not one trick ponies, so you can't expect us all to just continuously be the same thing like all the time. So why would you expect that from a group, you know? And there's some groups that have been around for years, and I feel like, and there's no offense to those groups. Like I've always said, if this group isn't for you, it isn't for you. And I'm not out to be the best group, the best support group out there. I'm out to just do me. And if this fits for you, fantastic, welcome to the family. But you know, if it doesn't, then, go find what works for you.
We
But a
need more
lot of the groups
people
that
like
have,
Michael. I
yeah,
said we need more people like Michael. You can shift the conversation. I mean, he's
yeah.
not that hard.
Yeah, and I feel like people feel the need to voice why they disagree with something, and that's not what this group is about. It's like, if even if and we had something happen recently about advice, and some people were being a little harsh in their advice and pointing things out, and it was like, you know what, we're all different. We all have we all have like different approaches that work for each of us, and sometimes being like, harsh to someone doesn't work for that person. Sometimes it does, and you've got to be. I think we've just got to be mindful of tact and remember that none of us are out to. I don't think any of us are really out to hurt each other, or at least that's not my goal. I don't think that's a lot of people's goals. But I think oftentimes we are affected by things more as widows, and we can sometimes take things to heart a little too much, and we can sometimes say things wrong and or in the wrong way. And you know, but at the end of the day, it's I want everybody to feel free to share whatever it is that's on their mind or whatever it is that they need help with or whatever. And I just want this place to be a place where you feel free and you don't have to ask. And it's funny because I always have people ask, they're like, "Is this okay to post?" And I'm like, "Yeah, like pretty much anything is okay to post as long as you're not like, tearing apart someone else. Um, and so that's always been my stance on it, and that'll probably always be my stance on it. But what I was saying about the other groups was that I feel like, with these other groups that I was in, I never saw like I've never seen a group change so much as this one has. And I think that's what's so wonderful about it is like we continue like even we're even different than we were 3 months ago, 6 months ago. Let's think about where we were in January when you joined, you know? Like how crazy far have we come since then, you know?
Yeah, very much.
Like I don't think you were active at all the first month you were in the group. I think
I
you
was a
posted every
looker.
now and then. Yeah,
I was a
and
looker. I paid attention and I made some really sweet friends that I still communicate with on a regular basis. But I wasn't
yeah,
out there, no.
yeah, and now now we just got now you're involved so much in here, and it's almost I want to address something that someone that brought up. There's an interesting thing that happens in here. It's sort of like we have a transition of sorts of like active people in here from month to month. We'll see like a certain amount of people be really active in here for a while, and then it kind of changes, and then you sort of see new faces that you haven't ever seen hardly, and um, it's crazy how much that changes over time. But someone was talking about this group being cliquish, and uh, I would never say that any. I think what problems you find in here, you're going to find in any other group. Really, you're going to find posts that haven't been responded to, or haven't been liked, or haven't been seen, or anything like that. I don't think that's going to change regardless of what group you go in. Just based on Facebook algorithms and stuff like that. And I Lila, go to sleep. I'll
I don't
come
think
check you in a minute. No, she really doesn't. She just knows when I'm talking to someone. She's just like, I want to get on the conversation. So,
may I
huh?
comment? I don't understand how so many young parents smoke. Can we have our health guru work on you guys? No.
No. And I try to tell people that, Melissa. And here's the thing that you guys need to remember: like most of the people who are active among like, okay, let's just be honest. You all have a close circle of friends. You know, we all do. How that's just how any social setting works out too. Like if you put 50 people in a room, they will split off into smaller groups because that's just how we are. We find people who relate to us, and we start forging friendships with people, and because you can't stay close to everyone. And I think that's what happens in here. Is, we get people who interact with each other so often that they're seeing their stuff pop up on their feeds so much more, and then you know before you know it, 5, 10 people have commented, and it's bumped up in everyone's news feed, and then you're seeing it, and so I don't want anybody to feel like they're being ignored because they posted something and didn't get a response or reaction. And I would almost say, reach out to people, go to meetups, meet people, um, become closer friends with people who are in the group, and post more often and interact more. And the more that you're active, the more you'll see people reacting to your posts. And that doesn't go for just this group. That goes for any group that you're in. If you want to feel a part, there's nothing stopping you. And I'm not putting anything in anyone's way who wants to be involved. You can be involved as much as you want to be. And yeah, so that's just kind of my take on it. So
Mine too. Very well. Yes, engage. You want to be a part of conversations. Engage. I know. I had Laura Lee, my big sissy. She was one that started when I did, and her
yeah,
and I talked nonstop because we just immediately connected. The
yeah,
half Filipina cancer widows, we just immediately connected. And
yeah,
so I had Laura Lee asked, put a post up, who wants to do a live
yeah,
and share their story with us on Tuesday? And there was a lot of feedback. It's things like that that gets you.
yeah,
Thank you, Karen. The word I'm looking for. You get what you put in. You get out what you put in. I used to say that to my groups.
yeah.
Take what you need, leave what you don't. You're not going to put anything in. You're not going to get anything back.
Yeah, that even goes for, responses you get when you ask for advice. I didn't see the post that was posted, but I've heard a lot talk about it. And it's not just that post, it's anyone's post. Like, if there's anyone who gives you advice that seems too harsh or too critical, like, you don't have to respond to it. And you don't even have to take it to heart. And I know it's easy to. And I actually had some really good conversations over the weekend with the people involved on that. But I just like everyone to know, like, when someone does give you advice, like, take what you want from it or what you need from it, and then, you know, leave the rest. Go on, you know, pick the fat off the meat, and, move
You call
forward.
me fat, you fucker?
No. Yeah,
I guess
yeah, Teresa, you do.
the thing the thing is though, I mean, if you're gonna ask for advice, be prepared. I mean, you're in a group full of people who
Yeah.
all have different opinions, and
And we're in a group of people who really don't give a fuck. So, like, just expect responses to be that way too, you know?
blunt, direct. We're not gonna just sugarcoat it. Some of us do, and some of us are kind about it. Others are just, it is what it is. So, and
Who's
you and I
been
have had this
who's been
conversation
famous?
before.
Yeah, I think so. I've had this conversation with you several times, I think. It's just trying to
Yeah, well,
figure out how to solve the problem of, you know, these things such as posting or feeling cliquish or whatever. I don't think there's really a solution to it. I think acceptance of the circumstances is really the only resolution you're ever going to come to, you
here, real
know?
quick, Aaron. And the way that when I started those live interviews, Aaron, it was just a short term for me until I found somebody who wanted to host it. A lot
Yeah.
of people want to share their stories, and we are going to make sure we do our damnedest that everybody gets an opportunity who wants to share. And trust
Yeah,
me, Aaron, we will. For the rest of this month,
there
it's going to be Pauline. For the next month, it's going to be Angela. And the month after that, it's going to be Brian again. And then because we're going to kind of rotate in and out, and I will just cover for when somebody else can't. But definitely, Aaron, keep us posted when, you know, one of those posts come up and say, hey, you want to share your story? We'll do it on Tuesday night, which is when we usually do it. But Gabe is special. He got Sunday night.
uh, I think, Michael, for sure. Like, I never expected the group to get to 2,000. Like, that was just never, it wasn't a goal of mine. It was just somehow, and we haven't ever done any sort of recruiting or, you know, I think most of the members who are here have either requested or been invited by another member. So it's just, you know, it's hard to see every post, and now there are days where I'll see something on my feed that was from 2 or 3 days ago, and I'm like, how did I
Oh, me
miss
too.
that? Like,
Me too.
and it's got so much activity on it. I'm like, how did I miss that thread? Like, so yeah, it's not intentional. So, anybody who's upset by it, trust me, it's not intentional. We try to get to as many as possible. But
Definitely.
to add to your other point, the other thing you guys can do to share your story is we're putting together a 365-day calendar. So, what we need from you all is a picture, what was a short bio,
A
and
short
then like
bio.
some information from you all. And you can send that to blogs@widowdark30.com. And we're going to try to have that done up before the end of the year. I'm hoping that we can get that done up before the end of the year so that you can start using your calendar right at January 1st. But
We're
yeah, we need
wanting
those as soon as possible.
we want 8 by 10,
Yeah,
and
8 by
we
10.
want a picture of you, a picture of either just you or you and your spouse, but not just the spouse.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that's right there. Your name, it can be your first and last name. It can be just your first name, where you're from, and did we say age? Missy,
I
no
think
topless
so.
photos. Maybe
There's not
topless
really
for
a
you.
deadline. I think the deadline is just whenever we get to 365, because I'm not even sure we'll get there, but I'd like to. So,
And, and by the way, there are, for those of you that are double widows out there, and I know I have been, Missy, I know I've been in contact with one in particular, but if you are a double
yeah.
widow, I think it would be great, and I did run this past you, didn't I, about
Yeah.
doing 2 separate dates for each
Yeah, because you
spouse.
you have the
So,
different story for each spouse, so I'm totally down for that.
exactly. So if you are a double widow, make sure you submit to, and you make sure the picture you submit can be one with each of your spouse, with both of them, not at the same time.
Yeah. So you guys prepare yourselves for that if you can. We'll
Yes, Teresa,
tag you in it, Teresa. We'll bump that post because I want everybody who's on that post to remember to send those in too.
definitely.
But does anyone else have any questions? We've been on for about 2 hours now, and Lila's still awake. Oh my God.
Fucking kid. Why does it need to be an 8 by 10, Gabe? And can it be
Because
something
of
new?
the size of the book, we want everything to proportionately look right.
Is semi-nude okay? Teresa needs to know.
If you want to post a semi-nude, you can. You don't have to.
The big thing we are saying is we're not going to allow anybody to request a specific date because that's 365 days
Yeah,
that will
we're
be
gonna
hard
have
to
some people who overlap. Like
consider.
that's just gonna happen. We'll try to get you as close to a date if you'd like to, as much as possible, but that's not really the point. We really just want to have as many stories in there as we can.
Exactly.
So,
And it will be even hard to try because so many people do. There was a twin date. I don't know. There was a thread for twin dates. And I did find my twin, but I can't remember who he was. But there was somebody who shared the same death date, and then there's somebody who shares the same birth date.
right.
Your birthday is my anniversary. I'd love to pick that day, but no.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes it really difficult. So I don't think we can't promise anybody that we can get them on a specific date. So, um,
She is
if
so
anybody
pissed.
else, oh, she's so pissed. If let's wrap up with like a few last questions here real quick.
Do you guys have any questions? If you have any questions about the calendar, we will
Yeah, save those
bump
for
that,
later.
yeah, we'll bump that thread up and you can ask those questions. Um, you know, Gabe, you could share my bio that I already sent you
Yeah,
if
we'll do
you
that.
wanted to give you an idea because it's hard because we're talking about a short paragraph. But like I said, we'll answer those questions back in that thread again. So,
Yeah, for sure. So, well, I just want to say thank you for having me on to share with you all, and thanks to everybody who stayed up until the end. We lost about 20 of you since we started, but that was 2 hours ago, so I don't blame you guys. Um, yeah, we'll post an example. So anything to do with the calendar, we'll post later. Um, what's going on tomorrow night? Is Monique going on? No, wait, it's Monday, isn't it? We haven't done anything
Monday.
on Mondays yet.
Monique should be going on.
Oh,
It's Monday.
tomorrow?
Yeah,
Okay.
tomorrow. And
Okay, Monique's
Tuesday, I
doing
still
Monday.
haven't.
Tuesday, Brian. Did Brian have
No,
someone?
Tuesday is me. I'm filling in for Brian, but
Ah,
I haven't picked the next person.
what? You still haven't picked?
I know. I have an idea, but I don't want to
Okay.
confirm it.
All right. Well, guys, be on the lookout for Tuesday. And then Missy and Irma on Thursday. And I believe Sarah will be back on Friday.
And she
With
did just ask you bachelors and bachelorettes message her because she would love to interview. She needs some volunteers who are open and single.
yeah. So, all right.
Yep.
I'm going to go take care of my kid. I appreciate you having me, Irma. And we will talk soon, I'm sure.
I'm sure.
Mahal
Mahal
kita,
kita.
Mita Media. Mahal kita. We'll see you all.
Bye, guys.